to the Gab Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. To participate in the 2025 Book Award competitions, please visit independentpressaward.com and NewYorkCityBigBookAward.com. Hello, everyone. On this episode of the Gab Talks, we have the pleasure of chatting with Australian author Anita Selzer. This is actually Anita's second visit with the Gab Talks, and we are thrilled to have her. Anita's most recent book, The Female Gaze in Art and Photography, is winner of the 2025 New York City Big Book Award. Volume 1 was the winner of the 2024 Independent Press Award in the Fine Arts category. Anita is the author of 14 adult and children's nonfiction books, including Reframing Beauty and I Am Woman. Her work focuses on women, gender, culture, and history. Before stepping into the world of publishing, Anita cultivated a rich academic and professional life, holding a BA, Diploma of Education, graduate diploma in women's studies, a master's in education, and a PhD in education. Wow. She's been long engaged in the intersections of gender, history, and learning. Anita served as the executive officer in women's affairs in the premier departments in Victoria. Her expertise also extended into publishing, reviewing books for Cambridge University Press and the academic journal Gender and Education. The Female Gaze in Art and Photography, Volume 2, offers a reflective contrast, reminding us how long women have been shaping and challenging the visual narrative, even if their contributions have been sidelined. Anita joins us today from Australia. Hi, Anita. Congratulations and welcome to the Gab Talks.
Hello, Gab. Hi. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Nice
gosh.
to be back.
It's so wonderful to see you again. And, Anita, I really didn't think you could improve upon The Female Gaze Volume 1, but Volume 2 is equally visually stunning, thought-provoking, and interesting. It's actually been hailed an intellectual and visual feast. Everyone take a look. I completely agree. It is actually so gorgeous, really is. And so much history, so much information. Anita, let's get started. For listeners who might be new to your work, what does the female gaze mean?
And the female gaze, sorry.
Yeah. No, please go ahead. What is the female, and how does it shape the way that we look at art and photography, which of course is the theme of both of your books?
Well, it's a very simple explanation. It's really about a female way of looking and seeing, bringing a female point of view and perspective to art. Looking from the feminine, maybe from the experiential, subjective, and just contrasting the dominant male gaze that has been very strong in art history, which has looked at women as sexual objects, goddesses, idealistic women. Female gaze focuses on the real, and it's very different. Now, I'll give an example with the cover.
Please.
This is the cover. Yes, so Laura Knight is she was a British artist. She's in the red dress and black hat. On the right is her model in the nude, and on the left is her painting of the nude model. Now, the significance of this is that women for a long time weren't allowed to paint from the nude. They weren't allowed to attend classes because it was a very prudish sort of thought at the ideology that women, didn't belong in the art world. They shouldn't be painting from the nude, and they were banned from classes till probably the late 1800s, and it varied from place to place. So this was painted in 1913, and she's saying, well, look at me. I'm the female artist. I have a female model in the nude, and I am painting the nude. And she upends this male gaze that's been dominant. And Laura Knight was knighted for her art by King George VI. So
Wow.
I thought this is a really strong image and painting, and it really speaks to the content of the inside of the book.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
And we're going to get back to that. Yeah. I want to talk about that Volume 1 captures the present and features contemporary artists. We talked about that extensively in our first interview. Now, Volume 2, as you just alluded to, the cover does speak to what is actually inside the book. It looks to the past and it features deceased artists. Explain the duality between the two volumes and what inspired you to continue the project after you completed volume one.
Okay, so while volume one looks at women living artists,
Yeah.
I interviewed them. So it was research based first. I read about these women, and then I interviewed them based on what I had read, and then I wanted to feature them. And then I thought at the end of that, I never planned to write another book at the beginning of the project, but then I thought, well, maybe this should have a companion, and we go to the past
Yeah.
and look at women of the past and what they've done, and how the female gaze was around before now. It didn't just eventuate now. It wasn't called the female gaze in the past in art history, but women have produced art from a woman's point of view and a woman's way of looking and seeing. And that's what's in volume two. So I looked at artists from around the world. I had to choose ones that I liked. I had to connect in some way with their work. And it just became organic. It wasn't planned, but the volumes can be read separately.
Yes.
So they stand alone. They stand alone, volume one and volume two. But I think they're fabulous companions if someone wants to learn more about this whole concept and artists using the female gaze, then they would get volume one and two because they're a lovely pair.
Yes, they most
Complements
certainly
the
are.
other.
Yes, they absolutely do. In fact, Professor Barbara Boltz from the University of Melbourne said, Anita Selzer offers us a luscious and lavishly illustrated window on the lives of women artists who have already left this world, but whose commitment and legacy lives on in and through their art. So, Anita, why was it so important to give voice to these artists from the past?
Well, I think in art history, women have been sidelined, they've been omitted, they've been excluded, they haven't had a prominent place in the arts. And I wanted to showcase the work of these wonderful artists. I wanted to give them a presence in art history, a visibility. They should be part of the canon. The canon of art history has been about great men painting great paintings, and we've had great women. Linda Nochlin, art historian in 1971, asked why aren't there any great women artists? Well,
Or,
there have been, but they
yes,
haven't been documented
yes,
necessarily. And they haven't been recorded and they haven't been showcased. And so, the last 50 years there's been change, I think probably since 1970s feminism
for
that
sure.
in the last 50 years. So, there are now women's art exhibitions and there are publications about women artists like I'm doing. So things have shifted in the last 50 years, but, that's not such a long time, is it,
No.
in the scheme of things?
No, it's not. You feature and highlight artists in very different eras and cultures and social contexts. Many of the artists that you write about are Paul Rigo, Tamara de Lipica, Elizabeth Cutlet, and Frida Kahlo. That's probably one that most of us are very familiar with. Very different. What connects them all under this idea of the female gaze?
Well, they're seeing from a female point of view.
Yeah.
So Catlett and Carlo and who was the third one? Lempicka. They've looked
Yes.
at the maternal. So
Yes.
Mother and Child was a beautiful sculpture by Catlett of a mother hugging a child. Lempicka, the image in my book is of her daughter Kizette, and it's a very sort of intimate picture of her daughter. And the third one, who was the third one? I'm just trying to think.
Paula Rigo,
Yeah, and there was
Paula and Elizabeth Cutlet.
and there was another, and Frida Kahlo. And Frida
Yes.
Kahlo documented her miscarriage.
Yes.
She very much wanted a baby, and she couldn't carry the baby. So that maternal theme, coming from female gaze, from their female experience, um, channeled into their art. And Paula Rego, she looked at abortion, rape, old age, social issues, love, and she channeled all that from a female gaze into her art. So that's how they've got that commonality. They're seeing from a female point of view, and bringing their own experiences and subjectivity into their art.
Now, was there a particular theme? I mean, you're talking about motherhood, identity, race, gender roles. Was there a particular theme or criteria that you adhere to choose all of these artists? Because, as you said, there are so many artists, accomplished female artists. So, how did you choose these?
Well, I had to feel something when I looked at their
Yeah.
work. I had to actually feel
And
something.
what did you feel?
I had to feel a connection in some
Yeah.
way. It had to resonate with me in some way. I had to have a reaction to their work. I also wanted a global representation, so I was mindful that I wanted, as widespread as could be. So we've got Australia, Asia, the US, and Europe represented in the book. There are 20 artists and photographers,
Mm.
and Cadlet was a sculptor. So all that together, I think, and I wanted to stop at 20 because it's a lot of work
It is
reading
a lot of
one.
work. I want to talk about the layout of the book, because it's really incredible. Like you said, it is so much work. Readers, whether they're art history buffs or passive followers of art, will really appreciate the layout. You present the history of painting in a masculine space, institutional barriers, which you spoke about earlier today, how many of the women were not allowed to attend classes. They weren't allowed to hone their crafts like the male artists were, social barriers. And then you also talk about the impact of feminism in the 60s and 70s, which you also mentioned was really inspirational to a lot of this change. Then you don't stop there, Anita. You highlight the artists with really, really in-depth biographies, an examination of their work, their use of the female gaze, and an extensive outline of solo and group exhibitions. I mean, it's absolutely incredible that you were able to compile all of this. How did it feel? Because you said you had a very personal connection with each of these artists. How did it feel to bring these women's stories and art together in one place? It's almost like curating your own exhibition on paper, isn't it?
Well, it felt like that actually. It actually
Yeah,
felt like that. Well, it was just, I just felt really, there's a sense of social justice here,
yeah, for sure.
fairness, and why should women who are so talented be either erased, omitted, excluded, not represented in the history of art and art today? I mean, you know, we need to show, by showing these women in a book, we are showing that we value these women, because when you see something present, it's showing something that's valued. If it's invisible, it's devalued. You know what I mean? It's not
Absolutely.
tangible.
Yes,
You
of
can't
course.
see it. So I had a very strong sense to do this. I've always loved art. Since I was about 18, I used to go to art galleries in Melbourne, and whenever there was an exhibition, I would go. But in those days when I was 18, it was mainly the men
Yeah.
who were hanging on the walls. Like today, look, it's changing. It's definitely changing, but still in galleries, um, men dominate the representation. There are more female directors of galleries coming through, and there are exhibitions on women's art coming through. So the change is happening, but there's no equality yet.
Not yet. Absolutely not.
Not
Now, did you
yet.
discover an artist when you were doing all your research whose work really felt ahead of her time? Someone who perhaps utilized the female gaze in such an impactful way and that you feel deserves much, much more recognition today?
Well, I can't isolate one, but there are quite a few. I think that Delimpika brings this Art Deco edginess to them, and she showcases the modern woman. So she
Mm.
sort of stands out in terms of what you're seeing visually. Um, Cahoon and Brooks talked about gender. Their work is gender fluidity, gender identity. I thought that was pretty amazing. But
Very
then,
ahead of their time. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, ahead of their time,
Yeah,
ahead of
yeah.
their time. Paula Rago was talked about difficult issues: abortion, rape, old age,
Mm.
things that are hard to talk about, and she represented visually. Um, Birgit Jurgensen, she was sort of critiquing gender roles, traditional gender roles in all her images. And she was very edgy, I think, in the way she depicted artwork, as was Greta Stern with photography. So I think, a lot of them were ahead of their time,
Yeah.
but it's not realized. It's not realized.
Well, I like the way the book really transcends different mediums, sculpture, photography, art, painting. It's really just gorgeous. And art, as we know, often reflects social change. What do these artists teach us about the world they lived in back then and how those worlds treated women? And do you think those artists were powerful? Because I do.
I think they were powerful because they were very resilient, and what you see in the pages is a success story in a sense that they got their art out there. Um,
That's so
I
true that they even got it out there at that time.
They even got it out there.
Yes,
They faced
yes.
so many barriers. The women couldn't roam around freely. They had to have chaperones. They couldn't go and paint what the men could paint because the men could roam freely. They could go anywhere they wanted. But social convention prevented women in the 1800s from doing that. They couldn't just roam around and paint what they wanted. So, yeah.
I visited Mexico City with my daughter last spring. And of course, that was after our interview. And so I had the opportunity to visit Frida Kahlo's house that she lives in with Paul Gauguin, her childhood home that she lived in with her family and then lived with him. And of course, her artwork was everywhere. And since we spoke about the female gaze, I looked at her artwork very, very differently. And I had a much deeper appreciation of the work that she did and what she was trying to communicate. Um, what do you hope readers, particularly young female aspiring artists, will take away from your books?
Well, I hope that they will see how these women were so determined and resilient and successful to get their art out there with all the barriers that they faced. And we've moved on from there. There are still difficulties today and there are still further barriers, but I hope that they will look at their resilience and say, hey, if they did it in those times, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to, do my best. And
Yeah.
I think there are women's networks today all over the world, women in art. There are collectives and networks and women supporting each other and women doing all sorts of things. So I think that's positive change, and that could be helpful to artists today.
What do you hope that volume two and of course the larger series how do you hope it will influence art, historical discourse, museum curation, photography criticism, or just art education on a whole?
Well, you know what? I never thought about this issue. I didn't think about the impact of the book at all. But I hope that they will take on board the female gaze and they will showcase the female gaze in their work and make sure that there are female artists and photographers and sculptors represented in their exhibitions, in their monographs, in whatever they're presenting visually, so that the world sees a presence of women artists and their work.
And if someone walks into a gallery tomorrow, how would you want them to look at art differently after reading volume one and volume two of The Female Gaze?
I'd like them to ask themselves a question. From what point of view is this work made? From
Mm.
what perspective? What's it about? What's it saying? And sort of, look at those questions.
How has your
Rather,
perspective changed?
well, I would ask myself those questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking
How
at it
has
this
it
way.
changed since you've written
I never
both
thought
volumes?
about it. I really never thought about it. I would just look at a piece of art and see what I can get out of it. But now I would ask myself those very questions and then see if I come up with some answers.
I definitely find myself asking those questions for sure. So I understand The Female Gaze Volume 3 is in production. And can you share a glimpse of what we could look forward to?
Okay, so volume 3 is about three Australian artists. Jane Sutherland, who was part of the Heidelberg School, which was an iconic school of mainly male painters. Emma Minnie Boyd, who was the founder with her husband Arthur of the Boyd dynasty, which is generations of artists in Australia, well known. And Josephine Munce Adams, who supported herself through art and was a wonderful artist, and not much is known about her. So it's a different kind of volume 3. It hones in on 3 artists more in depth. So we learn more about them, lots of paintings, lots of visuals, and that is now going into production and will be out in 2026.
Wow. And prior to our interview and during our little chat, you mentioned a volume 4?
So volume 4 is different again. It's still on the female gaze theme, but it's going to be on contemporary artists again. So probably about 12. So I'm trying to get more images from all of them, and rather than have 20, also from around the world. And I don't want to reveal the theme yet, but I think it's a wonderful theme. It's on trend. It's the last 5-10 years it's been out there, and it's sort of, it just touched me and I've jumped on it. So I'm working on that currently.
Wow.
I never expected to have a series, right?
That was my next question. My goodness, Anita, when you first started with volume 1, did you ever expect that in these few short years you would be penning volume 4?
No, absolutely. This was not planned. I have written now 15 books.
Oh my gosh.
This series on art has been, I think, my favorite. I've really loved what I'm doing because I'm constantly learning all the time about these magnificent women artists. When I say artists, it involves sculpture and multimedia and photography, and it's a very exciting field for me.
Volume 4, you said, is your favorite so far?
No, the series of
the entire series.
Yeah, the whole series. Volume 3 felt much more seamless. Volume 2 was arduous because the production manager and we had to keep liaising with galleries and copyright issues, and like Frida Kahlo hasn't got all the images in the book that I wanted to show, that I discuss her very important paintings, because we weren't allowed to show them.
So interesting.
So why the pictures in the book of her work are there is only because that's what we were allowed to show. And I think
and we're back. Unfair. We're back to social conventions. It's a vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and there's a disclaimer at the back of the book that explains why. So that, because I know if I picked up a book and I was reading and there's a text about images, but the images aren't there, I would ask myself, why aren't they there? And this is why. So we were very upset, but our hands were tied. There are regulations. There are regulations in showing art images, and you can't go against them. You have to go with the flow.
I'm surprised that you were as successful, quite frankly, as you were in procuring as many images as you have for both volumes and volume 3. It's pretty astonishing.
Well, volume 1, the artists gave me their images. The contemporary ones, but the other ones we had to source.
Sure.
And volume 2, we needed all the permissions, and that's very time consuming.
Yes.
We got permissions just before it was, nearly going to print.
Wow.
Some of them. It took that long, and we started very early on because I was aware that it's going to take time.
So what has the reaction been as we wrap this up from male artists?
Well, I have a friend who's a male artist. His name's John Catapan. He's very well known in Australia. And he rang me up. We became friends. And he rang me up and he said, let's have a coffee. So we had a coffee. And I said, John, is there a reason you wanted to meet me? And he said, well, actually, yes. He said, I want to mentor you. And I don't want you to give up writing on women's and art. Oh. I want you to keep going. That was before volume 2.
Wow.
So that was really fabulous because he was, affirming me in a way and affirming my work. And I never expected that.
Wow. Well, I you've done an amazing job. Thank you so much, Anita, for sharing this work with us. So again, when can we expect volume 3?
Volume 3, probably October 2026, and Volume 4, October 27.
Excellent. So where can readers find out more about you and purchase the Female Gaze volumes 1, 2, and soon volume 3?
My website, they can learn more about me. You can get the book on Amazon. You don't have to go anywhere. And there might be some other online websites as well.
Wonderful. Anita, this was such a joy to talk to you again. Hopefully we'll see you next spring at book camp. This was really great. Thank you.
We haven't made travel plans next year, but I so enjoyed this trip, receiving my Independent Book Award when I came to New York in April. It was such a buzz.
It was wonderful.
I'll never forget that moment.
Well, you deserve it so much. And I promise if you come this spring, I'll carve out a little extra time to spend with you because we'll definitely need to catch up. And of course, restaurant recommendations for you once again.
Thank you. Thank you,
sure.
Oh, lovely to talk to you.
You too, Anita. Thank you so much. Join us next podcast as we chat with David Benjamin. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak of the Gab Talks. Until next time, keep on reading.